Yay, Avital, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat. We've met before in person, so this is like a fun reunion.
It is, Erin. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I am so excited. I want to first of all, I love absolutely everything that you talk about. And I love that you're the same person off the screen as you are on. It just, your presence is so calming, and you have just such a peaceful character. So anyway, I would love to hear about your journey toward play, peace, and purpose with your children.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. So my journey kind of started as I became pregnant with my first child, because initially I didn't really want children. I grew up in a really big family. I have lots of nieces and nephews. I have like 28 nieces and nephews, and I love them all to bits. And my siblings are all inspiring and incredible people. But I think at that point I was just kind of like, I don't know, parenting doesn't seem like so much fun to me. You know, everyone seemed tired and like looking for ways to just like get a babysitter to take care of their kids, and I was like, what's the point, you know? But my husband was like, that's kind of a red flag for me, like a red line, like I want kids. And I was like, okay, I need to process this. And then I just felt it was more logical than biological. I was like, you know what, it's a human experience I don't want to miss out on. But if I am going into this, I need to find some frame of reference, some language around it, some philosophy that inspires me and excites me, so it isn't just something you have to do or have to get through or default. And so I actually kind of came to reading about parenting from quite a logical, research-based type of place, where I was like, okay, I'm going to prepare myself and I'm going to learn. And I read like Junkie was one of the first thinkers that I read. And then, you know, that I spiraled from there. When I first became a mom, I was reading a lot about, or I was practicing a lot of crunchy, practices like cloth diapering or, baby-led weaning or elimination communication. And each thing like this was just like a whole new world opening up to me, because no one around me was doing those things. So in every area of my parenting, I was feeling like I was pioneering something or discovering something, or and that kind of set me on that path of becoming, really passionate about it and fascinated by it from a very kind of, from a place of learning and curiosity.
I love so many things about what you just said. I love too that you practiced as alongside of your research. You weren't just, I feel like sometimes we have a tendency to just take in the information and then it stays there, and then we know really what we should do, but the practice is so difficult. Yes. So I do love a lot of what you do is break down kind of the practical steps toward putting it into play and putting it into practice. Yeah. I feel the same. I didn't want to have kids just to have them. It felt like it's just like this huge weighty responsibility. And my husband too was the one that was like, deal breaker if you're not into it.
Yes.
So shoot. So I did. I very much did the same thing. Like, let's figure out then how to do it, because I can't just rely on my gut. My nurturing instinct hadn't kicked in yet.
Yes. And I'll say more than that is, even if your nurturing instinct does kick in, there's, I think, a misconception, a complete myth that parenting comes naturally, that good parenting comes naturally. And I think maybe if we were raised in nature, as animals or whatever, or in this like idyllic scenario, then maybe good parenting would come naturally. Like, I don't think, deers or, wolves or whatever need parenting classes and need to read all the books, but we're not. We're raised in complex culture with a lot of stories and a lot of, preconceived notions and misconceived notions, and with our own parents, God bless them, and with all the gratitude to them who have given us so many positive things, but also, I'm sure, some dysfunctional patterns that all of us want to, to make the buck end with us and to choose a different path for our kids. And so I think often if you look around you, what comes naturally is, dysfunction, sometimes even abuse, yelling, depression. So many things come naturally when we don't actively, intentionally, deliberately, consciously craft a new way of being in the world. And for me, I had a dog before I had kids, and I got so mad at my dog when he would like pee in the house or something, that the rage that it triggered in me frightened me to my core. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can only imagine how I'm going to be as a parent. I have so much rage and so much anger and so much difficulty communicating peacefully, being patient, managing my emotions, being in peaceful relationship with my partner, all of that stuff. I was like, I have some work to do, you know? And that's where this is born from for me.
Same. And now the dog pees on the floor and I'm like, okay, whatever. This is no problem. I have children now. So just whatever, guys, it'll get cleaned up eventually. Walk around the pee.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so fun. So I watched you feeding your kids dinner, and they're in the, one is like, I believe one's in the high chair, and then one is complaining about the dinner, and you're like fully calm, and you kind of sort of narrate the process of what this is like. Anyway,
yes,
I was blown away. Dinner time is such a trigger for me. So tell me, what would you say? I know I have seen this in action. I've seen you do it. What would you say to a parent that in theory really believes in positive parenting, but in practice, they just keep failing at it? I'm talking about myself here.
Oh, and and me too. Like, that happened to be a really good moment for me of triumph, where I managed to stay calm. And I think the fact that the camera was rolling is what helped me to like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I'm so glad that I had that moment. But I have so many moments where I'm just so ashamed. Like, oh my God, if you saw me in those moments, I would just want the earth to bury me in that moment. So it's 100% normal. But I think one of the things that we have to remind ourselves is, just like any area of expertise, just like any muscle that we want to build, any skill that we want to gain. And I'm a huge believer in growth mindset and in the capacity we all have to grow into whoever we want to be. We need to remember that patience, peacefulness, playfulness, these are skills. They are skills, or you could think of them as muscles, right? Emotional muscles. And without the day in, day out gym, that you go to and you lift the weights, and without putting in the work, we don't get the results. So reading the books and watching the videos and thinking about how we'd like to be is good. It's a great start. But I think for most of us, we don't realize just how much time and investment and patience and practice and consistent, deliberate practice it takes to grow into that place where we can have the trigger, the sibling hits the baby, or they throw dinner on the floor, or they, say a curse word, and we are able in that test of a moment to actually put into practice everything that we've learned. That takes just a tremendous amount of time and investment, true learning, true practice. And so I just want to remind everyone that it's not something that we do overnight. We're unwinding and unlearning years of conditioning, years of cultural conditioning and parental conditioning. It doesn't go away just like that. It takes years and perhaps generations. Perhaps it's not going to happen with us. Like, maybe we're not going to be the ones who are going to fully transition into a respectful and peaceful approach, but we'll take that first step. And our kids will take the next step. And I like to think of that as, yes, I'm going to do all that I can, but also just being like eating a bit of humble pie and reminding myself that I won't finish this work. It doesn't ever end. And, I'll just do what I can for this generation. I'll take the next step forward,
Oh, that's so freeing. That's so freeing, because it does kind of take the weight off of our shoulders, and it helps us think of it as, let's be the bridge to the future generation, and let's just tweak something small and focus. I believe, we talk about it a lot with homeschooling, and you hear parents say, oh, I can never homeschool, I can never do that. But of course, no one's built for it. I mean, it is just having children underfoot all day is a lot. And it's practice and presence and failure and learning and growth mindset.
100%. And I also think we have to remember our context. It helps me. What liberates me is knowing that I'm just taking the next step, and it's hard work and I'm doing my best and all of those things. But also a reminder that the way our families are structured right now, you might hear my daughter screaming up there, but her daddy's with her, don't worry. The way our culture is structured right now, that so many homes have one adult, usually the mom, at home, with often more than one child by herself, even if it's just one child, not just, but even if it's one child, the amount of pressure on one individual that we have currently structured our communities into isn't actually feasible. It's actually much more work than one person. When they say it takes a village, it really, really does, and we don't have one. And so running a home and parenting all day, and then maybe you're even working or doing some other thing or keeping yourself healthy or doing, that is the work of several people. We needed the aunts and uncles and grandparents and all of the friends and all of the culture together. And hello, Tantan. You want to join me? This is Tanya.
Hi. Meet you.
And so we need all of that. We can't actually do it by ourselves. And so if you feel like you're failing every single day, it's because the task is too great. And it's not because there's something broken within you. It's not because you're not successful. You're doing the absolute best that you can with what you've got. But the task is too great for just one person. And I think that's really, really liberating to remember,
1,000%. Yes. We tend to isolate the circumstance and make it seem as if we are the ones that need to change. I always think of it like tailoring clothes. Like it used to be that we would tailor our clothes to fit the person.
Yes.
And now we're tailoring our person to fit the clothes. And we do the same thing with parenting.
Yes.
And it's just such an odd, when you step back, it is a very odd thing. I think there is, yes, like we are of the mindset that we are the ones that need to be fixed. So yes, I love that you offered that. I think you're so absolutely spot on in there. I have a question. So I tend to be more of like a I don't know if it's an empath, just receiving energy is I am often receiving the tumultuous energy of my children and then sort of going with that. And I believe fully in the respond rather than react. Yeah. But I'm curious if you have, I suppose, I don't know, 2 to 3 things that you rely on to kind of ground yourself when you're in the moment of just the swirling energy and the chaos of the day.
Yeah. So one of the things that I feel is very important is for me not to get swept up. And I think what happens, at least for me, maybe you can relate to this, is that the situation appears as an emergency. And I feel activated as though there's some danger. And sometimes there really is some kind of danger, like kids are jumping off of something or hitting each other or being wild in a way that you feel like the consequences are going to be so dire that you must somehow get activated or somehow get involved, right? And that's when we react, rather than taking a moment and responding. And I've kind of practiced this detachment in those moments where I'll literally step out of the room or look away or busy myself with something like, focus on my cooking, even though there's screaming right over here, even though there's chaos. Can you just not press that? Because the whole thing will end. Okay. No, yeah, you can stay, but don't press those buttons. All right, honey? So those moments for me are moments where I have to, okay, so don't press it, darling, okay? Just, I'm going to be with you very, very shortly, but I want to finish my conversation with Erin now, okay?
Thank you for sharing her.
Do you want to look at pictures? You can look at pictures. Okay. Sorry, Erin, just for a moment.
You are totally fine.
With some buttons, but I'm not going to be able to talk you through it, okay? You're going to do it yourself, all right? Here you go. So I feel like actually a detachment from the situation, and it's almost, I think it sometimes looks a bit like neglect. When people see me in that situation, I think they might think that I'm just checked out. But for me, at least, I often feel like, quote unquote, good parenting, or let's call it healthy parenting, is actually more about what I'm not doing than what I am doing, right? It's more about the inaction for me in those times. And because I know myself, I know that if I'm not in a calm frame of mind, I'm probably going to say and do the wrong thing and add more insult to the injury. And I kind of like to remind myself of, the doctor's oath of doing no harm. in those moments. So for me, it's a little bit about detaching, taking a step away, obviously calming my nervous system, you know, the deep breaths, and then reminding myself that it's not an emergency, as Dr. Laura Markham always says, it's not an emergency. But then also just really lingering in that space before I decide how I want to move on. And the fact is that 99 out of 100 times, it's not really an emergency. I mean, yes, something might break. Someone might get a bump. They might really, like, you know, pinch each other or whatever, and that will hurt. And that's not ideal. But me getting in there and getting even more stressed and adding stress to the situation is not actually going to help. It's just a perception for me that I'm doing something. So I think that's one of the, you know, you asked for 3, but that's probably just one thing that really helps me. Can you relate to that?
I so can't. That pause is essential for me in our house as well. And I also think the pause after, so yes, in a perfect scenario, I would then never tantrum on my children. But for me, the pause after that, the pause before repair is also just essential, because I found that before, if I would freak out on my children, and then I would feel so terrible that I'd want to get right back in the game right away. Even if I hadn't, I would have taken my time, right? Because then I need to kind of pause and step away and regroup and then go back to repair, rather than let's just repair quickly and move on, right? So I find that the pause before, and then if required, the pause after was just as important for me.
100%, because then it's true repair. Like, you actually feel sorry instead of just like, sorry, and you move on, but you feel all the resentment. You know, another thing that helps me is I kind of have a tendency, I think some of us do, is like, well, now I'm going to let fly. Like, now I've got triggered. Now I've said this, I might as well just, you know, kitchen sink it, as the Gottman say, like, just add all the other things that I have to say, right? Like, I have this complaint about you. Let me just bring all the complaints from the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Or I've said this in a harsh way, let me say it in an even harsher way. And one of the things in that mindset of, you know, the imperfection and the taking the steps is, okay, so I'm going to get angry right now. I don't have to go all the way. And I can, you know, find ways of letting that anger out or expressing it without the deep damage, you know? And to me, that's a good halfway step as well. Because even if you can't fully, sorry, sweetie, sorry. Even if you can't fully control yourself to take a break, not saying those, you know, the darkest things that you will most regret also feels good. You're like, well, I did say that, you know, he was being a sport brat, but I didn't say he was totally repulsive, you know, whatever. I somehow moderated myself. And, you know, that halfway step can also be, you know, better than the whole hog.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Even just like screaming a word, like a thing, like rather than making it about the person. Or I tend to be a lecturer, so
as we do.
Oh yeah, my husband can joke. Erin, she is checked out. She's not listening anymore. It's been 35 minutes, whatever. It is the worst. I'm calm, but it's like, I need you to understand. And here's another example of why this is okay.
And I'm so right.
It's the worst. So anyway, I find that just like sometimes yelling a word and not making it personal and not making it a thing, but just, it's like the balloon, like releasing a bit of the pressure before it kind of pops. But
or a noise, right? Just
totally. Yeah.
Just saying you're feeling like, I'm so annoyed right now.
Yeah. Exactly. It's because it's your emotion, and you are then modeling for your kids that every emotion is okay, but not every behavior is. And that is, that's great for them to see. So, yes.
So good.
Anyway, I could talk to you all day. I know you have a little one to care for, and I just love that you carved out some space for me and for us. And thank you so much for your insight.
Yeah, no, Erin, it is so great to talk to you. We could just talk like this forever. So thank you.
I know. Thank you.
Yay.